June 22, 1941, 3:50 in the morning. A thick and heavy fog, like fresh milk, hangs over the sleepy border Bug River. The silence is so dense that every movement on the other side of the river can be heard. There, in the thick bushes along the shore, 1,000,000 soldiers of the Army Group Center are frozen. They grip the handles of their carbines and wait for the second hand to complete its circle. By all historical laws, this old fortress was supposed to become a huge grave. The Germans allocated only 8 hours for its complete clearance and control. But today, the very fabric of the universe tore right in the center of the citadel. The air in the basement suddenly trembled, filled with electric crackling. The smell of ozone, burnt rubber, and white-hot metal filled the air. In a bright flash, 10 people in strange gear appeared out of nowhere. It was an elite reconnaissance squad from the year 2026. 10 professional warriors against an endless armada of invaders. The squad leader with the call sign Boulder instantly activated his tactical helmet. He looked at the glowing display. 3 minutes left until the start of the Great War. The fighters did not utter a word. Each knew their place in this mad battle. Their weapons were the pinnacle of engineering thought of the future century. aka 12 automatic rifles with collimator sights and silencers. Heavy Chikavan sniper rifles and powerful cord machine guns. But the main force was the drones. 5 attack quadcopters and 3 reconnaissance drones. Boulder gave a brief order to take key positions on the outer ramparts. Exactly at 4 o'clock, the morning silence exploded with the roar of thousands of guns. German artillery began turning the brick walls into fiery rubble. The heavy shells of the Karl mortars, weighing 2 tons, shook the very earth. The special forces pressed themselves to the floor in the casemates, covering their heads with their hands. Their high-tech armor absorbed shock waves and caught shrapnel. When the first wave of fire passed further, the Germans began a mass crossing. They were confident that after such a bombardment, there were no survivors in the fortress. Hundreds of assault boats from the Wehrmacht's 45th Division touched the waters of the Bug. At that moment, the first attack drone silently rose into the gray sky. The operator with the call sign Falcon saw every face in the boats on the screen. Boulder commanded to open a barrage of fire on the first wave of the landing. The cord machine gun started working. Its 12.7 caliber bullets wrought havoc. They pierced the boats through, along with the motors and the bodies of the soldiers. For the Germans, it was a shock. They did not understand where death was coming from. The special forces worked with short, surgically precise bursts. Each shot from Chikavan's rifle meant the death of a German officer. Thermal imagers could see enemies even through the dust and fog raised by explosions. The first Panzer III and Panzer IV tanks appeared on the bridge over the river. They clanked with metal, confident in their complete impunity. Sniper Shadow calmly took out the tube of the modern RPG-32 grenade launcher. One shot. The reactive grenade pierced the frontal armor of the lead tank. The explosion of the ammunition inside the vehicle threw the turret 5 meters up. The second tank then burst into flames, blocking the path of the entire huge column. Hitler's million-strong army literally ran into a wall of fire and steel. General Schleiper rubbed his eyes in bewilderment, looking through his Zeiss binoculars. He called in the Luftwaffe to suppress these strange firing points. Dozens of Junkers 87 dive bombers approached the target with the wail of sirens. But the special forces had stockpiled Verba anti-aircraft missile systems. The heat-seeking warheads locked onto the hot engines of the aircraft. The sky over Brest suddenly blossomed with dozens of bright flashes. 5 Junkers crashed into the swamps, never managing to drop their load. German pilots in panic began to retreat to airfields in Poland. The psychological effect exceeded all possible expectations of the commanders. Wehrmacht soldiers screamed in horror about devils invulnerable to bullets. Red Army soldiers from the garrison looked at the 10 heroes as if they were gods. Gleiba understood that the ammunition in the crates was dwindling with each passing minute. He sent a group of 3 on a daring night raid across the Bug River. The fighters took only silent weapons and kamikaze drones with them. They crossed the river in complete darkness, using night vision devices. The drones flew over the forest, finding command vans and fuel tanks. One after another, German fuel trucks and radio communication nodes exploded. The million-strong army was instantly blinded and deafened, losing control. An eerie silence settled in the citadel itself, pressing on the nerves of the enemy. The Germans were afraid to even move, expecting an instant bullet from the darkness. They pulled all available reserves and armored vehicles to the fortress. Hitler personally demanded a report on why Brest had not yet been taken. But how to storm ruins where every stone responds with precise lead? The special forces began teaching the soldiers of 1941 new tactics. They showed how to hit the enemy at the seams and use the terrain's folds. The second night turned into an endless bloody nightmare for the Germans. The special forces hunted patrols, using silencers and thermal imagers. Bullets of caliber 5.45 left no chance for soldiers in helmets. By noon on June 23, The Wehrmacht's losses exceeded all norms. 3,000 infantrymen killed and hundreds of burned trucks and tanks. General Guderian was furious at his command post near Brest. His steel wedge got stuck right at the border, losing precious hours. Operation Barbarossa began to crumble from the very start because of 10 people. Smolensk and Moscow gained extra days to prepare their defenses. But the steel ring around the citadel continued to slowly tighten. The Germans brought up super heavy artillery with a caliber of 600 millimeters. Shells weighing 2,000 kilograms began to pulverize the barracks into dust. One of the Special Forces soldiers was seriously wounded in the shoulder by a shrapnel. Modern first aid kits were saving lives, but the supplies were rapidly dwindling. Gleiba decided to deliver the final blow to the enemy's ammunition depots. The last 5 kamikaze drones took off towards the German rear. The ground shook from a series of explosions of incredible destructive power. 1 million Germans froze in horror at this man-made earthquake. Huge columns of smoke rose where trains loaded with shells had stood. But these were the last technological resources of the squad from the future. In the AK-12 magazines, there were literally 10 rounds left. The Special Forces soldiers stood up to their full height on the shattered brick ramparts. They felt the space around them beginning to vibrate again. Their mission in this time was completed to the very end. They lifted the spirits of Brest's defenders to an unprecedented height. Thousands of Red Army soldiers now knew for sure that the enemy could be defeated. They saw the pride of the Third Reich fall under the blows of 10 warriors. The air was filled with the thick smell of ozone and an approaching storm. The 10 heroes began to slowly dissolve in the golden rays of the sunset. The Germans launched a new attack but met a wall of bayonets and fury. The soldiers of 1941 fought for 10, remembering the lessons from the future. They advanced, shouting words of gratitude to their teachers. The fortress did not surrender on the first day or the first week of the defense. 1 million enemies trampled at its walls, not understanding the reasons for such resilience. Many years later, historians would find strange objects in the ruins. Spent casings made of a special alloy would become a global sensation. The marking of the year 2026 would remain a mystery. Major Gavrilov would record about the people who came from pure light. Their brief battle forever changed the course of the most terrible war in history. They proved that a handful of heroes can stop any armada. The war took a different path, leading to victory much faster. The red flag was hoisted over Berlin a whole year earlier than planned. Millions of fathers and sons returned home to their families alive. The anomaly in Brest closed, leaving the fortress a symbol of eternal glory. 10 warriors returned to their era, remaining loyal to their oath. 1 million Germans could not break the steel of their spirit and the power of their technology. It was a victory of great courage over the blind force of the invader. The Brest Fortress stands today as an eternal guardian of the borders. The fire from the future forever illuminated the heroic past of the country. History remembered them as the invisible angels of the great victory.